Good morning, my YouTube friends and family. We are going to finally get into this solar build, and I'm going to walk through and show you guys just my setup and how I laid everything out, what I have wire wise and component wise. If anybody sees anything that I can improve on, or a big you can't do that, please let me know. I appreciate all the comments. I've learned so much on YouTube, and it is greatly appreciated. So let's get into it. So here is our system here in the compound. We have two 6.5 kW Blue Power inverters, and they are SP6548. We have four Big Battery 48 volt Huskies. They are 5.3 thousand watt hours and 103 amp hours. So for total battery capacity here, we got 21.2 kWh and 412 amp hours. And for what we are doing here in the compound, that's a stretch. These batteries will last us running our current loads about 24 hours without any solar. Like today, we aren't pumping out a whole lot of power from the solar, so we are running on batteries. And then we have a 100 amp sub panel. I think it is 32 circuits. We have a 4x4 wireway, and into that runs an 1.5 inch conduit with AC power in from the panel below, and we have a 2-inch conduit bringing up our primary loads for what we have for actually being solar. Batteries, we have 250 amp bus bars. We're running, the schematic called for a I think it was a 15 amp inline fuse or an 18 amp inline fuse. I wanted to be able to disconnect the solar in case for maintenance and upgrades, so I put in DC breakers for wire sizing into this inverter. Of course, these are a 3-inch conduit that I put up just to make it a little cleaner. Initially when I hooked everything up, it was just all wires hanging everywhere just to get the system in, make sure that everything was working and functioning properly. And then I went out and bought this wireway. It's a 4x4, I believe it's 5 feet, and then did 3/4 inch flexible conduit in there. The wireway I set off the wall 3/4 inch, so I put a block in there to get that wireway 3/4 inch off the wall, so I could run my PV wires and my battery cabling behind it. So my cable sizes on my batteries from the inverters down into my bus bars is a 2-aught all wire gauge, and then runs down, like I say, behind that wireway into a 250 amp bus bar. Positives run into a 200 amp inline fuse, and then positive into the bus bars. From the bus bars into the batteries, I have a I believe they're 1/0 SP175 connections, and then I do have a 4/0 that pigtails the two bus bars together. The schematic called for a 15 amp inline fuse, like say from the PV. I wanted the ability to cut that off, so I put in some DC breakers. These breakers are 16 amp, but that's within the 10%, so there is also fuses in the inverters to protect the inverters. So I primarily put this in just so I had the ability to shut the solar off. Let me know, if anybody thinks I should still put the 15 amp inline fuse in there, but that's kind of how I got it set up right now. And all this comes in to the solar room through this 3/4 inch PVC conduit. The AC in and AC out to each one of these inverters are a 4 all-wire gauge that was recommended by the manufacturer, and it called for a 60 amp double pole for the AC in. Now this would be excuse me, this would be the AC out, but I figured if it's 60 amp AC in, it should be 60 amp AC out. Now I have thought, hey, maybe I can increase the size of that breaker to a 70 amp or a 75 amp. Let me know your thoughts on that for these inverters. But my wire, the 4 all wire gauge AC in and AC out, that I believe is rated for 80 amps. I'll have to check that to make sure. But the main panel is right below this in a storage room, and it actually comes up through my 1.5-inch conduit. I did block this stuff off the wall to get it out, since my wireway was blocked off the wall as well. Pretty simple. Well, it wasn't actually simple. I'll throw some snippets in here for when I actually wired this up. Getting those 4/0 wires, or not 4/0, 4 all wire gauge, getting those number 4 wires into the slots on the bottom of these inverters was very, very tricky. You have to be very careful when you're stripping the wires. Make sure that all your wires, stranded wire, stays tight, and just take your time and get them up in there. But here we got problem number 2. Alright, so I don't know if you guys can be able to see this very good, but we have number 4 stranded wire, alright, which is required by the manufacturer, and we're trying to put it in these little old holes here. Let me see here. And I mean to tell you, it is crazy trying to get that wire in that little hole. Especially a number 4 wire. Jeez. So the reason I didn't put my PV wires in a conduit was just because I couldn't. There was no way to make that connection up here with the way that the inverter was laid out. So That's why I left my battery cables exposed, as well as my PV wires. So we got AC in, AC out. I did bond my wireway, and I did downsize all my grounding conductors. So I have number 4 wire, line 1, line 2, and I downsized my grounding conductor to a number 10. Just sanded off the paint on my wireway until I got down to the bare metal. Put a little grounding lug on there, and bonded this wireway to my sub panel. I call it my PV panel. Yeah, so the only thing, these terminal lugs with my number 4, I had to get different lugs to put them on my neutral bar, just because they wouldn't fit in there. My ground from my main panel I did keep at a number 4, and then, like I say, I downsized to a number 10 all the rest. My grounding screw, this panel is neutrals and ground separated, and it is not bonded. My grounding is not bonded to the panel. So that's kind of where we're at here. I'll show you guys how this goes down and how I connected it into the main panel. Real quick, one thing I forgot to mention is when you're hooking up your AC in and your AC out, it's very, very, very important to make sure that you get line 1 and line 2 the same out of your panel from downstairs or wherever you're pulling off your main panel. When you go from your main panel into your inverter, line 1 must be line 1 coming out of your inverter into your sub panel. So you know, I'm a dummy, so I went through and marked literally everything. I marked line 1 on my panel, I marked line 1 on my wires, and of course I marked line 1 in the inverters. So I also mark, I mark everything. I marked my inverters, inverter 1, inverter 2, color coordinated all of my arrays. They are black, white, and red and blue. So it's very important to keep all your stuff labeled and indicated. I got this nice Sharpie paint marker, which is awesome for writing on anything. So little quick tip, just make sure you keep your line 1 and line 2 poled correctly. See ya. Alright guys, here we are in our little prepper pantry downstairs, where the main panel is at, and this is a 200 amp panel. I can't get real close with this camera, but it's a 200 amp main panel. The solar room is right upstairs, so what I did up here was, the original plan was, I was trying to shorten the main service coming in. I wanted to pull all this wire down and slide this main service entry over. It's a big loop, comes down in here. So initially I was trying to pull this wire down and get it slid over to this side of my cutout. I cut the double top plate, cut a slot in there to pull that over. The issue that I had was the main lug stripped out, was locked up tight, couldn't get it, stripped the head. So then I went to plan B. Plan B was really after that just to get the wires down through the opening that I had access to. I have the AC in coming from the panel upstairs, and it comes down into my 60 amp double pole that provides AC power to my inverters. And I had the same issue down here as far as getting number 4 wire onto these lugs. So I just did the same thing as upstairs and had to get some different lugs. You can get bigger lugs, and get all kinds of stuff. I also got these quick connects. They are really nice. They can handle up to 3 number 12s, which is rated for 20 amps. All these are 20 amp primarily for basic distribution. I do have doubles in here. Now we are not taking over. We're not putting our dryer, we're not putting our stove, or we are not putting our air conditioning units on our solar. Those items to me are not really necessary. If I don't have them, I don't care. I'll wash clothes by hand and cook on burner plates or other secondary ways of cooking. So everything worked out pretty good. My 30 amp to the barn wire connections. You can use a service panel as primary, as your distribution, like a wireway. NEC does allow that. All these loads here I hooked up while the panel was live. I was just trying to get some loads on the inverters to see how they are. I'll clean all this up once I turn this panel off to get the rest of these conductors in there and hooked up to the panel. I got a lot of digging around in here to do to get some of these wires out, and I didn't want to do that with a live panel. Don't be a dumb grunt or a dead one. I made this little cheat sheet to help me out what I got on my 200 amp panel, laid it all out, and then what I'm actually going to move over into my 100 amp solar panel. So hope this helps you out a little bit. If you guys have any questions, see anything like, hey buddy, you need to fix this like quick, please let me know in the comments. I appreciate everybody's help. I've learned a lot off of multiple channels that I view. Another good one for hooking up solar and figuring all this out, of course, is all the heavy hitters, David Paws, Will Prowse, but I've been getting into Adam DeLay. He's got some good stuff. Our inverters are very similar, so you can check his channel out. It's got a lot of good information. He does a lot of testing, which is awesome. So that's pretty much it, guys. We will see you later in the next video when I start wiring all these loads in. So there you go. That's where we're at currently today. Today is December 31st. It's about, I don't know, 9-10 o'clock. I wanted to start this thing while we still got some ambient light outside. And if you've seen something that might be able to help me improve it, please leave it in the comments. And until then, we'll get back into it. I'll finish hooking up these wires in the panels. That is scheduled for tomorrow. I have to panel down that main panel to hook all these wires in there, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, remember, smile. God loves you.